Every activity you carry out in your daily life is actually made possible by the biological machines called proteins at the size of 1/1,000,000th of a millimeter. The word protein usually brings a healthy diet to mind. Most people have heard that a person needs sufficient amounts of protein for a healthy body, but they don't know much more than that. However, proteins are miraculous molecules that show us important facts. These giant molecules, formed by the arrangement of amino acids according to a specific plan, show us the true greatness of creation. For example, the material called keratin, which makes up the hard structure found in the hair and nails, is a protein. Some other proteins form a strong elastic substance found in tendons that connect muscles to the bones. The material that gives the skin its smooth elasticity and the bones their durable structure is another protein called collagen. The rubber-like elastic material surrounding the arteries is another protein. The name of the protein that initiates the process of seeing when the light hits the retina is rhodopsin, while the transparent proteins that form the lens in the eye are called crystallin. Special carrier proteins are also involved in the entry and exit of molecules into and out of the cells. The DNA molecule, which stores the entire knowledge of life, cannot be copied, cannot produce information or enable cell division without the help of proteins. In other words, proteins carry out a variety of tasks, both in the structure and the numerous functions of the cell. For example, enzymes are also proteins and act as catalysts that increase the speed of chemical reactions in the cell by billions of times. Working in teams, they build all the chemical parts of the cell. In addition to their ability to build, they also have the ability to decompose compounds. They are able to break down the large molecules into simple compounds usable by the cell. In other words, they perform digestion. They are also responsible for reactions that generate energy for the cell. The molecules that enable muscle contraction are also proteins. Simply stated, life would not be possible without proteins. Proteins have functions in every process in the body, from the nervous system, the digestive system, and the endocrine system to cell division.
A complete cell is needed for a protein to be produced. It is impossible for a cell to come into being gradually, as evolutionists used to claim. It is either all or none when it comes to proteins. It is again the proteins that build the proteins from scratch. In other words, not only do they undertake every task in the body, they also produce proteins. So protein synthesis is a job that can be done only by proteins. A total of 4,500 proteins are involved in the process of protein synthesis.
Throughout the process of protein synthesis, the presence of a myriad of proteins is necessary. Molecular biologists have carried out numerous experiments to see if it was possible for the proteins to form through coincidences. Among these are famous scientists such as Harold Morowitz, Fred Hoyle, Ilya Prigogine, Hubert Yockey, and Robert Sauer. Despite the fact that they are evolutionist scientists, the conclusion they reached is that it is not possible for proteins to have come into existence through coincidences. In order for proteins to be produced, other proteins need to be ready at the scene to help this production, because the things that synthesize proteins are, again, proteins. In that case, proteins cannot exist without other proteins that existed before them. This proves the fact of creation, and that proteins were created at once and without any gradual steps. Now, let us briefly summarize why other proteins must be present in order for a single protein to be formed, and see the properties of the amino acid chains that make up the proteins. 1. Of the over 200 amino acids found naturally or artificially in the world, only 20 can be used for protein production. Therefore, the right 20 must be picked and set aside from among the 200 varieties of amino acid. 2. Some amino acids are right-handed, some are left-handed. The selected amino acids must be left-handed and never right-handed. This is because in nature, only left-handed amino acids can be used for protein synthesis in organisms. 3. Amino acids should not only be left-handed, but also they have to be in the right sequence. 4. Every process necessary for protein synthesis that we briefly summarized requires a protein. For the process of copying the relevant information from the DNA and for hundreds of different processes, the relevant proteins need to be available. 5. To synthesize the copied information, the cell organelle called ribosome is required. The ribosome contains ribosomal proteins and ribosomal RNA. In other words, proteins must be readily available for the ribosome itself to exist. 6. There is also a special section in the ribosome that binds the amino acids, and it is called peptidyl transferase. This section is isolated from outside. This is a hydrophobic environment, which means that water cannot enter here. This is precisely the most important condition necessary for the binding of amino acids to one another. Here, the ribosome enables the peptide bonds to be formed, and an amino acid chain can be created.
The theory of evolution that was developed in the 1800s was a big lie right from the beginning. In fact, Charles Darwin, who proposed the theory, also knew this. He has many statements about the difficulties of the theory, but I want to share a specific one. I cannot anyhow be consented to view this wonderful universe, and especially the nature of man, and to conclude that everything is the result of brute force. I am inclined to look at everything as resulting from designed laws. All these laws may have been expressly designed by an omniscient creator, who foresaw every future event and consequence. The more I think, the more bewildered I become. I am conscious that I am in an utterly hopeless muddle. I cannot think that the world as we see it is the result of chance. So information is an absolute necessity. The information regarding the laws that bring together the molecules, amino acids, proteins, the information regarding thousands of different biological processes like intracellular respiration and metabolic activities, and information regarding many countless other details are only a few examples. Also in the macro world, visible to our eyes, the actions of animals and plants are always coordinated and purposeful.
But certainly if we look at individual organisms, I think the beauty and the intricacy and the complexity within individual organisms and those that live in sort of a symbiotic relationship or in areas where nature perhaps is at its best, that I think that reflects what the Apostle Paul refers to in Romans 1 verses 20 through 23, that everywhere we look in creation, we see the handiwork of a creator to such an extent that we can not just know that God exists, but we can even know the divine nature and eternal power of God in a way that is obvious and that we should not deny. So I think nature, when we are in harmony with it and when it is in harmony with itself, that it points directly to God and the existence of a creator in a way that should draw our hearts and our minds and our spirits towards him.